Bold.
Cheeky.
Flashy. Gallus.
Who is the greatest All Elite Wrestling World Champion of all time? That is the question we are answering today. There have been, 7 people that have held the All Elite Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship, split across 11 different reigns. And today I'm going to break down who I think has had the best reign and for why. I'm going to do this by going through each wrestler's individual reigns, talking about their defences, talking about their character at the time, talking about how engaging they were to make you click on and see what was happening in AEW, and I will use that to help me draw the conclusion as to who is the best, and also who my favourite AEW World Champion of all time is. My name is Ryan Robertson, and I am one of 3 hosts for the Gallus Podcast, Film and TV, and we are coming up on All In, where Owen Hart Cup winner Bryan Danielson, my favourite wrestler of all time, will challenge current reigning defending AEW World Champion Shane Swerve Strickland for the strap in what I presume to be the main event. And my favourite wrestler of all time, Bryan Danielson, is almost definitely going to win that match and almost definitely going to go on to have one of the greatest reigns as AEW champion. Very, very short reign up until Wrestle Dream, just giving us banger after banger after banger every single week before he retires from full-time competition. Or Swerve gets the biggest win of his career. Both are outcomes that I am so on board with. And that got me thinking, who has been the best AEW World Heavyweight Champion? Because, well, it'll most definitely be Danielson should he win. And here we are today with this little episode, this little bonus episode talking wrestling, trying to decide who the greatest All Elite Wrestling World Champion is. The All Elite Championship was, the inaugural All Elite Champion was, as everyone knows, Chris Jericho, who would win the championship in the main event of All Out in 2019 by defeating Hangman Adam Page. And how we got to this match was at Double or Nothing, when Hangman Page would win the Casino Battle Royale and Chris Jericho would defeat Kenny Omega in the main event to set up this match. This point we still had kind of New Japan, I've just left WWE Chris Jericho doing battle with a not over mid-card Hangman Adam Page. And Hangman's journey is truly spectacular in AEW. He always was seen as just a mid-card guy, but everyone knew he had the main event babyface in him. And watching him go from being this bland, boring babyface to go on to be the babyface of AEW is a truly fascinating story. Jericho, in the meantime, he was just a reliable name to put the strap on. However, I would have been so interested to know what AEW would have looked like should Hangman Adam Page have defeated Pac at Double or Nothing and won the title then. Would Jericho still have went on to beat him at All Out? Anyway, Jericho's reign, immediately after winning the World Championship, nailing that Judas effect, would see him create his character, going backstage and giving us a little bit of the bubbly. And his character birthed from there as this eccentric heel mastermind 80s, 90s villain, twiddling his thumbs and then being foiled by the good guys, the Wile E. Coyote, Chris Jericho. He would, on the first Dynamite, form the Inner Circle, a faction which featured Mike Santana, Ortiz, Sammy Guevara and Jake Hager, and he would use that faction to basically draw your attention to Dynamite each and every week to check out what AEW World Champion and his faction would be up to. And that, I mean, it makes perfect sense to give Chris Jericho a faction as your World Heavyweight Champion. Darby Allin, I believe, defeated Jimmy Havoc to become #1 contender, and he would go on to battle and challenge Chris Jericho for the All Elite World Championship on the 3rd edition of Dynamite in a Philadelphia street fight, a match which saw Darby Allin have his hands handcuffed behind his back, nailing little dives to the outside before getting pummeled and Judas affected and seeing Chris Jericho secure a retention of his championship. This was on the build to Full Gear, where Chris Jericho was set to defend against Cody, and Cody Rhodes cut that promo, that silver spoon, beautiful promo, which made Cody's promos, that basically started the Cody promo, tears in his eyes joke, where he says if he don't beat Chris Jericho, he will never challenge for the AEW World title again. That's a good stake to give a Jericho defence, to kind of hook you in and make you more engaged than you would have been if it was just a regular, boring old match. Chris Jericho would go to war with Cody Rhodes in a match that I remember really, really, really enjoying at the time, as their styles just kind of meshed well together. But the MJF heel turn, Chris Jericho's eventual retention when MJF threw in the towel, would give Jericho a monumental win and a banging match, setting up that MJF Cody storyline that would take us into next year. Scorpio Sky, SCU, would defeat the Sex Gods of Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara to retain their tag straps, therefore setting up Jericho versus Scorpio Sky on Dynamite 9, the Thanksgiving special. And Chris Jericho would get a nice defence against Scorpio Sky. A good range of people Chris Jericho was interacting with during his world title reign. You had him with the Darby, the Cody, the Scorpio Sky, and then it became a case of setting up a little minor feud with Jack Perry. You won't last 10 minutes in the ring. And you had that kind of whole thing going on. Very, very good, before Jericho's reign would ultimately be foiled by the man who would walk through each and every single member of the Inner Circle, a man who would walk through Kenny Omega and then walk through a tournament defeating Sammy Guevara and Pac to eventually challenge Jericho at Revolution, Jon Moxley. The main event title win of Jon Moxley saw an amazing bit where he removed his eye patch to reveal he could see, and an amazing promo to end the show where he celebrated his champion in the crowd. Jericho's reign was over, and Jericho's reign might be the worst reign in AEW history. And it was really, really, really good. That's the bar. The bar is really, really, really good. You either do better or worse than really, 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 really good. Jericho is not the best AEW World Champion of all time. He's one of the weaker of amazing, amazing runs. However, if we're talking about contenders to be classed as the greatest AEW World Champion of all time, the next reign we have to talk about, Jon Moxley. He's certainly a contender. Mox took the title from Jericho at Revolution, and immediately the world shut down and we had COVID. So immediately Jon Moxley had to start fighting an uphill battle to draw attention to AEW, to make his World Championship reign go down as good and engaging. And my lord, did he go on to have an insane run as champion. His first defence would come against the unbeaten at the time Jake Hager, who defeated Dustin Rhodes at Revolution and continued picking up victories on the no fans shows until eventually it was signed for Dynamite 28. And the two men would have a 30-minute no holds barred match in the Nightmare Factory that was bad. Let's be honest, it was not a fun match. It was a long match and it was a Jake Hager match, but Mox would successfully retain against Jake Hager, ending the man's unbeaten run. Before we would move to Daly's Place, and the exalted one, Mr. Brody Lee, would make his claim for the World Championship, doing the whole stealing the belt gimmick for a spell, post a match with Jon Moxley and Frankie Kazarian, which was absolute killer. Mox early days AEW there is no one better than Jon Moxley. Mr. Brody Lee would fall at Double or Nothing in a phenomenal match, a absolute goated match, and a goated little tiny rivalry. Mr. Brody Lee only recently debuting, 2 months prior, if not a month prior in AEW, and immediately going straight for the top title. Just this match, Jon Moxley lifted Mr. Brody Lee to the main event level, which is great. Brian Cage on the same show would become number one contender, and through bollocks involving COVID, the match would have to be delayed for quite some time until Fight for the Fallen came around and Jon Moxley would defeat Brian Cage. Another debut name that Mox was able to pick up a good win over. There is 3 names that all came into the fights with Jon Moxley unbeaten, and he walked through all of them. Speaking of unbeaten, after he defeated Brian Cage, Maxwell Jacob Friedman would begin making his claim for the World Championship with his MJF Deserves It campaigns. Yeah, this would lead to a scene Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin in one of my favourite matches in AEW's history, which would see the best near fall from a coffin drop I think I have ever witnessed, before Moxley would kill him with the paradigm shift and retain his title before entering the match with MJF with the paradigm shift banned was the stipulation, and MJF's unbeaten reign would come to an end at the hands of Jon Moxley. Mox would then pipe up on Dynamite and have a successful defence against Eddie Kingston, followed by a successful defence against The Butcher, followed by a successful defence against Battle Royal winner Lance Archer at Dynamite's anniversary in an NODQ match before heading into Full Gear and I Quit match against Eddie Kingston. A superb fight. And in this fight, you would see the promo battle between Mox and Kingston. Mox's promos were on top tier for all of this. Him in his leather jacket and the strap. He would successfully retain against Eddie Kingston. And at Full Gear, Kenny Omega became number one contender. And winter is coming. Kenny Omega would end the run of Jon Moxley by definitively turning heel, aligning with Don Callis. Jon Moxley's reign was probably the tamest of let's try something, it's the pandemic. They had the belt on Mox, and they just had him put on the best match on every pay-per-view, on every card, whenever he was defending it, whenever he wasn't defending it. There was no mad bollocks involved in Jon Moxley's title reign, and it allowed guys like Brian Cage and Lance Archer to find themselves in that world title scene as believable and credible challengers. I believed that Mr. Brody Lee could have taken the title. I believed Darby Allin, that near fall, Brian Cage, MJF, Eddie Kingston, Archer. Jon Moxley made you think every single man he was going up against could take the title from you. Mox's presentation during this run is another little thing that furthers how much you could see he as being the guy. He as being the best. He was the best. He might not go down as the best world champion though. There are still many names and many runs to discuss. But Jon Moxley is certainly a contender for the best AEW World Heavyweight Champion of all time. Kenny Omega's reign, on the other hand, was a let's just try things. And my god, everything they tried for the most part did work. And this is one of the weirdest reigns in hindsight, actually, looking at it. Looking at it on a screen. At the time, this reign felt so much fun to live through because you never knew what was going to happen next. But looking back in hindsight, most of it failed and didn't do what it was intended to do. That's odd. That's really, really odd. Kenny would of course win the title and explain his actions next Thursday on Impact, which of course got a huge pop. Sorry, next Tuesday would Impact have been at that time? I think Impact would have been on Tuesdays at that time. Whatever day it was, on Impact with Don Callis. And the Elite, the Young Bucks, would come to join Kenny Omega over the duration of this reign to Zawa. And we just had bad guy Kenny Omega doing bad guy Kenny Omega things in a run that, for the most part, was good. Yeah, so his first defence would come in eliminator matches against Joey Janela because poor Joey, stonker of a fight. But his first actual proper defence would be against Rey Fenix at New Year Smash. And this match was just phenomenal. Solid storyline repercussions, this match was just phenomenal. There are so many beautiful spots in this match, and I rewatch this match quite often just because Gallows and Anderson would rock up during this run. And then you would have exploding barbed wire death, he says as he yawns, against Jon Moxley. This match was so close. Omega brought out the psychopath. I didn't like comedy goofball Omega during this run, which is one of the major detractors from it, is the fact that for the most part he was playing up comedy goofball Omega. But there was serious moments in there, and the serious moments were strong when he challenged Mox to the Exploding Barbed Wire Death match and then beat Mox in the Exploding Barbed Wire Death match in a moment that could have been great but unfortunately fell through. Just because, Bang Bang didn't do Bang Bang like they wanted Bang Bang to bang. So they had to improvise, and they did quite well. They came away from it quite well. Omega, of course, was the AAA Mega Champion at the time, and we were building to Impact Rebellion when he would battle Rich Swann for the Impact World title, which he successfully did, continuing belt collector Kenny Omega, who is now Impact, AAA, and AEW World Champion. The potential was high with the belt collector gimmick, but unfortunately they stopped at 3. I wish he went for 4 or 5. Ring of Honor and NWA were right there, mate. And you had decent relationships with both of them. You should have. You also should have showed up for New Japan at some point during this. The issue with this reign was all of the matches were great and everything Kenny Omega was doing was great, but everything that surrounded him, the Young Bucks, just these things, the elite around him, just the Good Brothers, for example, weren't that cool. What made his run so much more fun, though, like, you can enjoy this conversation, is when Kenny Omega would defend against Moose in Daly's Place, defend against Callahan at Slammiversary, only to be confronted by Switchblade Jay White, the Never champion. If only Switchblade Jay White versus Omega happened for the Never strap, that would have been the perfect continuation. Omega would then defeat Orange Cassidy and Pac in a really, really quite good match at Double or Nothing. Actually, it was a fucking incredible match. Jack Perry would become number 1 contender and Omega would just kind of beat him. That's fine. Christian Cage would then shockingly defeat Kenny Omega for the Impact title before Omega would beat him in a barn burner at All Out. Unbeaten Christian Cage, I believe, at the time. Really good match, and that's when you would have the Daniel Bryan debut and the Adam Cole debut. Adam Cole joining the Elite and Omega being there. Banging 30-minute time limit draw with Daniel Bryan, and this is the time when the Elite got good. Now that the crowds were back and fans were back, the Elite was running high because they began to get into that feud with the Hangman Adam Page, and 6-man tags and 8-man tags galore. The Jungle Boy Jack Perry, Christian Danielson ones, the Dark Order ones, all of these matches were amazing, but Kenny Omega's run would come to the perfect ending when Hangman Adam Page would defeat him at Full Gear. Yes, please. Omega's run, you are the definition of weird. The definition of great on paper, great fun to live through, but in hindsight a lot of stuff fell through. Like the Barbed Wire Death match, the Rich Swann TNA run, the Jungle Boy match. All of these things just kind of didn't go anywhere. The Ray Phoenix match is just too good to cramp on. So, and also your presentation during the run was also weak. I don't know, Kenny, I'm mixed on your run, but I can tell you this for one thing, you are not the greatest AEW World Champion of all time. That honour goes to someone else. Does that honour go to the Hangman Adam Page, though? Now, Adam Page's promos as World Champion were all 10 out of 10. Every single one of them. This fiery cowboy could engage you like no one else. In his first defence against Bryan Danielson, A Winter Is Coming, entered the reign of goated Hangman Adam Page, who had a 60-minute time limit draw in the opening contest of Winter Is Coming, an absolute stonker of a match that I remember absolutely adoring at the time and claiming to be one of the best matches of the year. They would say a rematch will do it on the first Dynamite of the year, which would go on to be one of my favourite matches of all time. The blood from Hangman Page, the blood from Bryan Danielson, the blood from Bryan Danielson especially. You take my favourite wrestler and you put him against who I would tell you would be my favourite wrestler at the time, just because of, well, his story was complete, cowboy shit, and the sheer quality of matches this man was having every single night. The two matches with Danielson basically elevated Hangman Adam Page from the best face in the company to also one of the best wrestlers in the company. He would then enter a feud with Lance Archer and they'd have a big Dynamite Texas death match at a special Dynamite. One of the best Dynamites of all time, actually. Dynamite 1, 2, 3. Adam Page, of course, winning with that buckshot over the referee through the tables. Great finish. Lance Archer every now and again just pops up and becomes a world title contender, doesn't he? It's odd, and this is when Adam Page would enter the Adam Cole feud. The match at Revolution was a spot fest that I got a good kick out of, and the feud was really strong as well. And then the night after, he just casually defending against Dante Martin, because why not? Dante Martin was the weirdest wrestler in the world in 2021 and 2022. He just kind of won matches on Dark. You get the Texas Death rematch against Adam Cole on an episode of Rampage, of all things. I guess just boost that Rampage rating. Before you would enter the CM Punk feud, when Adam Page would end CM Punk with a couple of words. And unfortunately, in the main event, fall to CM Punk. If only Adam Page had bet CM Punk, and we wouldn't have to suffer what's to come. CM Punk, CM cunt you are, in fact. Get to fuck. This is when I turned on you. You were the best thing in wrestling for a while. But this match, beating Adam Page, is when I turned on you, CM Punk. And I don't know if it's a shame you got injured immediately after. Adam Page is really strong. I mean, storyline's great. The Danielson going like tweenerish to fuck with Adam Page. Punk like fucking with Adam Page as well. Defending AEW from CM Punk, which is what he was doing. The Adam Cole feud being the weakest, and even that was pretty damn good. Yeah, Adam Page, you might not have the best reign, but you certainly are in the top echelon of reigns. And now we get to the confusing bollocks bit, where we have to talk about CM Cunt's reigns. So CM Cunt won the belt, and then kept it for a while, because he got injured and had to vacate it. That's what happened there. That's rubbish. It's okay though. Jon Moxley would become interim champion by beating Hiroshi Tanahashi at the first Forbidden Door after it was meant to be Punk Tanahashi, and Mox would go on to defend the belt successfully against Konosuke Takeshita. Yep. Rush. Yep. And Brody King. Yep. Those 3 matches exist. Pretty sure just Robertson was in there somewhere, and other random matches as well, but come on, Punk. Would your reign have been as cool as that? Probably not. And then they would build a Dynamite 151, the title unification match, of which, squash match, Jon Moxley actually just bet CM Punk in 3 minutes, in one of the best matches I have ever had the privilege of watching live. Holy hell, everyone was so confused, and I absolutely loved it. CM Cunt, you can eat absolute shit. CM Cunt, your reign is the worst reign in AEW history. Oh no, what's that? 3 days, like a week later, at All Out, CM Punk would defeat Jon Moxley in the main event to become world champion again. Shit. Oh, that's just rubbish. Oh wait, CM Punk got stripped. All Out happens, CM Punk gets stripped. The whole MJF Joker chip tease, I guess, doesn't get to happen. And there goes all those reigns. CM Punk, that's the other worst reign in AEW history. So I guess we need an interim champion again. Well, let's have a Grand Slam Tournament of Champions, why don't we? Jon Moxley defeated Bryan Danielson in the finals. There's part 1. Jon Moxley would then enter his first feud with Adam Page. He would then defeat Adam Page, unfortunately, because Page got injured. That was a rough ending to that match. But hey, the feud that came from it between Moxley and Adam Page the year after was absolute god tier. He would have a defence the week after, just I suppose for letting everyone down against Pentagon Jr. Yes, please. He would successfully defend against Pentagon Jr. before we would build to full gear when Maxwell Jacob Freeman would be crowned champion. Mox, that reign was really strong, and you did a great job of trying to bring AEW back from the shadow that was CM Punk and the Elite's brawl-out incident. CM Cunt, your reigns are the worst, followed by Jon Moxley. You've only elevated your claim to being the greatest AEW World Champion as the most reliable man in the company. It's going to be pretty hard to beat, but hey, there are 3 strong reigns left to talk about. 3 incredibly strong reigns. The reign of Maxwell Jacob Friedman would commence, battling the winner of the Eliminator Tournament at Winter is Coming, Ricky Starks. MJF's promos, pretty strong. Immediately he gets rid of the firm. Thank God he immediately got rid of the firm and just kind of got on with wrestling as MJF. The baddest heel in wrestling. Ricky Starks verbally destroyed him, but MJF would successfully beat Ricky Starks. MJF would then do what he does in all of his feuds. when he comes to fighting Bryan Danielson, who calls him out, and they are set to do battle in a 60-minute Iron Man match, which has forced Danielson through an ungodly list of wrestlers to fight week in, week out. Konosuke Takeshita, Rush, Bandido, Brian Cage, Tony Nese, Timothy Thatcher. They would all fall to Bryan Danielson. Konosuke Takeshita would get an eliminator title match with MJF, by the way, on Dynamite, and that match is so much fun. MJF would win that, of course. And then in 65 minutes, what some say is the greatest AEW match of all time, MJF would beat Bryan Danielson 4-3, bloodied war. MJF would celebrate, his bar mitzvah would happen, which would lead to the dream match for Double or Nothing 2023, the Four Pillars 4-way, as MJF would successfully defeat Darby Allin with a headlock takeover, Jack Perry and Sammy Guevara. This MJF and Darby Allin thing is going to last forever, and I love that. Sammy Guevara really did feel like the fifth wheel in this match. So did Jack Perry. MJF and Guevara had a kind of friendship during this. Yeah, it's all good so far. At Forbidden Door, MJF would open, defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi, the Ace. It makes perfect sense. Would head to MJF's Collision debut when he would be confronted by Ethan Page, a hometown boy, in the Canadian place, Ontario, where they were, and also, more interestingly, firm member Ethan Page would successfully retain against MJF. MJF had a really good balance with his run of big-time matches, the Four Pillar 4-way and Bryan Danielson, with your low-key week-to-week TV feuds such as Ricky Starks and Ethan Page. He and Adam Cole would begin their feud where they would have the 30-minute time limit, and then we'd kind of enter that series season where MJF and Adam Cole would go to become best friends and form Better Than You Baby. You either loved it or you hated it, and I personally did not like Better Than You Baby one bit. I really wish MJF stayed as a heel. But you know what? Face MJF did win me round once Adam Cole left the equation. Interesting one, that. Very interesting one. MJF would retain the title in the main event of All In against Adam Cole. Blockbuster main event, that. Alright match. And then at Grand Slam, the match I cared about, because I wanted my second favourite wrestler of all time, Samoa Joe, to take the title from MJF, but he didn't. Unfortunately, MJF would win. And then they just casually announced MJF versus Kenny Omega for Collision. No storyline, no build, just fuck it. And they had an incredible match. And then he would battle Daniel Garcia a few weeks later. Incredible match. And then he would battle Jay White in a match that is not great. He'd form an alliance with the Acclaimed, which wasn't great as his run goes on a downward spiral, heading into World's End, when finally it ended in one of the most shocking moments in AEW history as I watched Samoa Joe just win the strap. Yes. Samoa Joe literally came from being Ring of Honor TV champion, came from nowhere, and all of a sudden he was AEW World Champion. MJF, your reign is really weird to talk about, because it has its moments, but it also is dragged so far down by Better Than You Baby. So let's talk about the good parts. MJF Ricky Starks was fine. Danielson was amazing, and that feud was amazing. The Four Pillars match was great, the feud was shit. The match with Samoa Joe at Wrestle Grand Slam was fine. The match with Kenny Omega was great. The feud with Jay White was god awful. And then the match with Samoa Joe at World's End was brilliant. So, not what it could have been. 403 days, the longest reigning world champion. They didn't play up the MJF leaving at the end of the year thing. He caught wind and became too much of a babyface to do the heel shtick. I don't know, MJF, scumbag boy. There's just something missing from your reign. There really is just something missing. Or something there that shouldn't have been there in Adam Cole. I'm so glad Adam Cole didn't end the reign and it was Samoa Joe. Adam Cole, I don't like wishing injuries on people, but thank God. That felt really mean-spirited. Samoa Joe's reign, however, was great. Video packages of this man in a suit smoking cigars with a strap on. That's all you need. That is all you need to be, this man is our world champion. This man is great. Samoa Joe would come out and cut a promo being like, right, saw that I'm the champion now. You want a shot? Earn it. And then Swerve Strickland would come out. And then Adam Page would come out. And then they'd have a three-way face-off and everyone would be like, oh my god, yes, this is the world title scene. those two men would leave, and then Hook would come out, and everyone was like, oh my god, yes, this is the match we need. And Samoa Joe would battle Hook, and Samoa Joe would whoop Hook's ass. In a great match at the start of the year this year, Samoa Joe would defeat Hook in 8 minutes and remain world champion. And oh my god, did I say, oh my god, yes? Because if I didn't, I'd like to reiterate, yes, yes, yes. This was superb. Joe would then enter the Adam Page Swerve Strickland feud, and it was an amazing 3-way at Revolution that Samoa Joe would just narrowly escape with a victory before defending against Wardlow, because Wardlow was also calling out Joe. Basically, a lot of people just kept winning and kept wanting Joe, and Samoa Joe just kept fighting and beating them. I got a great kick out of Samoa Joe's world title run at the start of the year, and also just him being one of my favourite wrestlers of all time. It kind of aided my excitement. He had matches teaming with the Mogul Embassy to battle Adam Page, Hook and Rob Van Dam before the 3-way. He would team with Swerve Strickland on the build to Dynasty, and he would have that eliminator match against Dustin Rhodes. Beautiful little fight. Swerve Strickland would end the reign at Dynasty, becoming World Heavyweight Champion, and Samoa Joe would form a friendship with Hook and Shibata before being wrote off TV recently. Why might Joe's reign be my favourite? Joe, you might have actually had my favourite reign of AEW's World Championship, mate. You just kicked ass and took names and kind of got on with it. Like, yeah. On you, Joe. On you. My current two is Jon Moxley and Samoa Joe for the greatest AEW World Champion, because people were down on AEW after the MJF Devil shit because it was bollocks. And then, oh my god, Joe just came in, seized the title and made it relevant again, made it matter, did what MJF needed 400 days to do in about 100. The man made the championship. That's what I love about AEW's world title, is the man truly makes the title. Jericho made it sports entertainment, MJF made it sports entertainment, Mox and Joe made it sports based, Punk, fuck him, Adam Page made it NXT 2019, 2020, and then Swerve Strickland comes along and brings in this hybrid of everything and just has aura. Having defeated Samoa Joe, he would have an eliminator match against Kyle Fletcher, an amazing promo where he talks about his daughter. He'd have frequent eliminator matches against literally the who's who of professional wrestling. He'd defend the belt he'd have an eliminator match against Brian Cage, because Brian Cage and the Mogul Embassy would turn on him. He would successfully defend it on Collision just because fuck it, against Claudio Castagnoli in a belter of a match. He would pipe into a feud with Christian Cage because the Elite were like, right, he's feuding with everyone on the roster at the same time. The Elite were like, right, here's Christian, here's your opponent. He would defeat Christian. He would defeat Killswitch. Roderick Strong asked for a match. Roderick Strong got a fight with Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland would beat him. He would then go to Forbidden Door and defeat Will Ospreay in one of the best matches I've ever seen main event on pay-per-view. He'd then call out Okada, have a match for Okada. He'd enter Blood and Guts, and then he's going up against Danielson. The AEW World title, Swerve Strickland, you might have one of my favourite reigns of all time. Jesus God, this championship is good. If I was to give you my top 3 and answer the question, who is the greatest AEW World Champion of all time, I would tell you that the best AEW Champion of all time is Jon Moxley. He carried the company when the company needed him 3 separate times. He'd have brilliant matches, not a single bad match across all of his reigns, with the exception of that match with Duke Hager, which you could probably ignore and forget about, which is what I like to do. Even his interim reign, he gave 110%. As for the second best AEW World Champion of all time, why that be Samoa Joe, because he revived a dying title, and also he's Joe. And as for the third best reign, it's Swerve Strickland. Now, Swerve Strickland, I fully foresee being able to overtake Samoa Joe and Jon Moxley. If Swerve Strickland just keeps doing what he's doing, say we get Swerve Strickland versus a Young Buck in an eliminator match, versus Okada with a finish, versus Jack Perry. He takes off the Elite feud in eliminator matches or even title matches. Cool. He beats Bryan Danielson at All In, and then he loses at Wrestle Dream in his hometown to Hangman. That's a fucked reign. I would be so behind. Maybe a fight against a CMLL guy. Maybe there's battle with like Hitch and Cheryl or something. The AEW title is great. There's not a bad reign there, except from any reign that is in any way associated with the CM cunt. And I suppose MJF's. Maxwell and Kenny, you have such weird reigns. You have such weird reigns, boys. Who is your favourite AEW World Champion of all time? I've told you my top 3. Let me know your top 3 in the comments or just via text. My phone number is, cut this bit, Editor Ryan. Editor Ryan, no, Ryan, cut that last bit. Thank you very much for listening. Check out our other work on X, Y and Z. Link 3's talking about all sorts of pish. And get on with your day and have a good one. Also, I hope Bryan Danielson, I don't care who wins. It's going to be good, come all in.